Okay, welcome to the March 10th, 2020 Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Tonight we'll start out with an invocation offered by Alderman Barnhill. I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance, so if we'll please stand.
Would you bow, please? Heavenly Father, we again come to you in prayer tonight, thanking you for this great nation that we live in, for this great country that we have, and for all the many freedoms that we enjoy. We know that many countries, many nations do not enjoy the freedoms that we have. We ask your blessings upon those first responders and on the soldiers who protect our freedoms and on the first responders who protect our freedoms also. We ask also a special blessing tonight, Heavenly Father, on those that have been affected so much, so very, very much by the tornadoes. We ask that you be with them. We know that they are struggling, many of them are, and we ask your blessings upon them also. Father, help us as we, as aldermen, make decisions tonight that affect the direction in which the city will go. Give us spiritual wisdom and guidance. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is an opportunity for citizens to make comments on items that are not on the agenda. And our typical routine is there's speaker cards located at the post in the back of the room, and you would fill out that card. And if you plan on speaking on any item that is a public hearing, you would need to fill out those also. But tonight's meeting, you only will be able to speak unless you're an applicant, if I'm not mistaken, on items that have public hearing. So I see nobody coming forward. We'll move on to communications from the Williamson County Commission. I see no one here tonight. Go to approval of the minutes from the work session of February 25th, 2020, and the Board of Mayor and Alderman, February 25th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Are there any recognitions or any miscellaneous reports tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body. Tonight we'll be considering items number 11 through 20. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 3, this is a consideration resolution 2020-3, a resolution to amend City of Franklin contract number 2019-0007, Parkland Agreement Impact Fee and Greenway Trail System Construction is amended. Agreement between the City of Franklin and Clayton Properties Group, Inc. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Berger. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 4, this is a public hearing. Consideration of resolution 2019-131, a resolution initiating the annexation process and draft plan of services for the annexation of 841 Old Charlotte Pike.
Good evening, Board. Thank you. This is an initiation for annexation. This property is contiguous to the city limits. The subject property is within the conservation subdivision design concept. The applicant has not submitted plans yet, but just in preliminary discussions, it is 154 single-family attached and detached townhomes that they're proposing within this development. It generally would be supported by Envision Franklin. There has been discussion about the north-south right-of-way dedication that would be needed, and those are things that would be worked out beyond here. And I think that's all I need to tell you, so thank you so much.
I'm going to let you give me that card.
I gotta fill it out first, Mayor Moore. I just drove in faster than I could from Frankfurt.
Commissioner.
And what,
Commissioner.
Commissioner.
County Commissioner.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll fit it right
Which
there.
item are you wanting to,
This,
okay, you can fill it in. You've got time, because I have two other speakers. Okay, so I have speaker cards for Greg Gamble and Cliff Smith. We'll give you 2 minutes each.
Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. My name is Greg Gamble, and I'm representing the applicant, CPS Land, who has this property under contract for purchase and for potential development. We understand from the Joint Conceptual Workshop there was some concern about a road proposed through Gentry Farm. That road that's proposed through Gentry Farm is on the major thoroughfare plan adopted by the City of Franklin. We have been working with the City of Franklin Engineering Department, as well as the neighbors that are around us, looking at alternatives for that road. We have an alignment shown here in yellow that does conform to the geometry requirements of the of a collector road in the City of Franklin, and can go
Can you show that
around the
back around
Gentry
this
Farm.
way?
Yes, I'm so sorry. You can see here, the orange road cuts through the purple area, which is Gentry. The green property here is the property that we're proposing for annexation. It's directly adjacent to the City of Franklin's current city limits. And the yellow line here would go around Gentry Farm through our proposed development as a collector road.
Can you see that, Margaret? Okay.
Now, this is not something that's fixed in place. It's something that we have been working with staff on. We are happy to propose this as amendment to the major thoroughfare plan, but there's a process for that. And that process, we would like to start with your approval tonight. We understand that you have not been able to fully vet our proposed development plan, and we're asking for that opportunity to begin that conversation, present our plan to Joint Conceptual Workshop, as well as present this alternative road alignment. Thank you.
Oh, there you are.
Hello, my name is Cliff Smith. I'm with CPS Land, and just want to let you guys know CPS is a developer in Brentwood, Tennessee. Been around over 20 years. Currently developing Witherspoon in Brentwood. I've also developed Montclair, Annandale, Providence, and Mount Juliet. And the company's very first project was Franklin Green. So we're happy to be back in Franklin for the opportunity. Look forward to working with the city and adjacent landowners to develop a great community. Thank you.
Welcome to the meeting. We,
thank you, Mayor.
sorry to rush you here tonight.
I'll treat this kind of like I treat a county commission meeting. I'm Tom Tunnicliffe. I do live at 302 Foxborough Square West in Brentwood. I'm a county commissioner for Williamson County, District 7, Brentwood. Last night, we voted on changing the county zoning from 1 acre, 1 house, to 5 acres, 1 house. I had no problem voting for that, as every contact I had that was personal and in my district was very much in favor of it. The outcry was to keep our county in the rural essence that it has now. Maintain that county farm, the old family farm. When I was thinking about that last night, I thought Gentry's Farm. My kids are 19 and 17. They grew up going to Gentry's Farm. Spoke to my son today. I was down visiting him at the University of Alabama. Sorry about that. And asked him about it, and he said, "Dad, I couldn't imagine that changing out there. That's some of our best memories." And for a 19-year-old to mention picking pumpkins as a memory is impressive if you have a 19-year-old or something close. So I'm here tonight to ask you to please think long and hard about first cutting a road through such an amazing farm, but second, even putting a development between two very historic Williamson County farms and changing, in my opinion, the view of Williamson County in that area. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'll now declare the public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
If I may, really quickly, and it's not a motion, so this may not be appropriate, but earlier today I
I
was,
need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I was-
Second.
Yeah, so for
Or a
discussion.
motion second.
sorry, I was trying to do it right. Been talking with Scott Gentry today. I see his brother Alan's here, but Scott did ask me to, on his behalf, he couldn't be here to read this statement, so Alan, I apologize, I'm sure he, but anyway, Alan did not fill out a speaker's card, but Scott and Melanie Gentry, who reside at 871 Old Charlotte Pike East. On behalf of the Gentry family, we would like the board to know we are very much against any high-density development at 841 Old Charlotte Pike. This annexation would bring a permanent change to our family's heritage and way of life. A high-density development between two of Williamson County's oldest historic properties, Gentry Farm and Hamilton Place, would do irreparable damage to the beauty and integrity of this corridor to our county and city. So, that was from Scott Gentry, and I promised him I would share his feelings. And while I have the mic, I think I can only speak for myself, but the road through Gentry Farm, to me is despicable, and I have already contacted city leaders to try to make that amendment to the major thoroughfare plan. So I will be bringing that forward, and if we get support, I would like for that to just be off the books, so it's not something they have to fear that's gonna continue to come back up. So to support that. As to the development moving forward, or the plan of services for annexation, I know it is a gray matter right now. I know we've got some tentative numbers. I do appreciate the idea that they respect not going through Gentry Farm, but I just can't support development out there. So I know it's to carry it forward, but personally, and the people that I've spoken to, the media coverage that was received over the last couple of weeks, when this came up initially, as a 40-plus year resident of Franklin, I cannot do anything that would harm that view shed or that rural integrity that is beloved by not only us, but people that visit.
Anybody else want to speak?
Yeah,
Alderman Barnhill.
I'm not sure totally what we're looking at tonight, because we don't have a plan of services, and we don't have anything that's, I'd guess, in concrete, if you ever have anything as far as development in concrete is concerned. My comments would be to this. I don't think anybody on the board is gonna vote to annex the Gentry Farm, okay? That's never been a question. First off, they would have to request it. That's not gonna happen. So the annexation question is off the table. They brought forth a plan that, if approved, would alter the major thoroughfare plan. It would move the road out of the Gentry Farm. Those were the two issues that I listened to the other night when we had those things come up. I don't think they've had a chance to address with staff the new road alignment, or what it does, or how it affects the development. I'm not sure what the county commission, when I went to the meeting, and this is not a criticism of the county commission, I'm not sure what the county commission voted on as far as a 5-acre lot. Now, one house, 5 acres, and what that's supposed to accomplish. Because the only thing that really accomplishes is drives that development back into that site right there. It probably does not keep the 500-something thousand people that we project being in the county by 2045. It probably does not keep them out. What it basically does, in my view, is to drive them into the city of Franklin, or into Spring Hill, or any other incorporated area where the services are available, sanitary, sewer, water, whatever. And so I appreciate the county commission doing what they did, but if I had a family farm and I was looking to do something with that, and I'd farmed it all my life, then that family farm is no longer worth what it was on Sunday. Well, you can shake head whatever you want to, I guarantee you it's not. And that's the way it is, but I'm gonna vote for the development, I'm gonna vote for this. But we've gotta see where we are on the road, we've gotta see some other things in the plan. And Vernon, do you wanna address some of my comments and some of my concerns on what we've just, yeah, go ahead and do this.
Before Vernon starts, let me just clarify. This is a vote to have staff start working on
Exactly.
what a plan of service would be.
Yeah, you
How do
are-
we get sewer
You're
there?
not annexing, you're
Not
not
annexing.
approving a plan, you are just saying, go do the work and
But-
bring it back to us, and then you'll make a decision down the line.
But they do go hand in hand.
Well, the reason we set this up is so you can give us some direction going
Exactly.
in. Not only whether you want to pursue the process, but also if there are specific topics or areas you want addressed, like the alignment of the road or any other elements that may relate to the rural character of the area. This is an opportunity to kind of tell us subjects or topics you want addressed in the process of reviewing an annexation request and whatever subsequent development plan might come with it.
But they are, the plan of services and annexation, they are first cousins.
It's simply, as Eric said, and I would offer that for those of us that have listened to the dialogue here, is that you have provided us direction.
Yep.
And the major thoroughfare plan isn't, the alignment isn't exact or set. It's to provide the connectivity, and as we work with property owners, based on your guidance and their expectations, we look for that ideal alignment. And then how we annex property and how it develops, we'll come back to you, but this is exactly why we go through this part of the process to initiate, so you can give us some feedback, which you have in this instance. But we'll be definitely coming back, should you want us to continue to proceed, and the property owner and their design team to collaborate with staff and develop plans for your eventual review and consideration.
Alderman Berger.
I'm gonna support the plan of services because I think we need that step to find out where we wanna go with this. Then at that time, after we have that, we'll decide on annexation and when we get there. The county commission last night did not change their zoning. They voted on their land use plan. They have gotta come back and redo their zoning to match that land use plan, just like we all did, recently. I would say that, for me, the realignment of the road, Mr. Gamble showed us, is a must. That has to be done, because the Gentrys have asked for that. I think we need to respect that. The other people that have their farms behind that have asked for that. We need to respect that, and I totally, 100% support that. I would not vote for it the way it is. It has to be realigned, and I know that you showed that on your plan tonight, so you're willing to work with that. Clyde's right, we had, last night, they did downzone the properties in our county, so it's not worth what it was worth on Sunday, you're right. And so there's some issues there, and it's in our urban growth boundary, so I think we need to address that, and it's right across the street from high density. But it has to be done right. As we talked many times around here, it's all about design, how we do design. The road alignment, the design, and I think in this area especially, if development's gonna happen in this quadrant, it's got to address the rural aspect. It's got to have, I think, more so than any that we've seen come into this town, a better design that fits the rural area. That does not take away from these rural areas, because these rural areas right around it, people want to save them, they want to preserve them, and we need to support that 100%. So it's about character of the development, it's about design, and the thoroughfare plan has to be changed. And that's how I'll support it, but I'd like to see the plan of services.
Alderman Martin.
I will echo that about the road, but I thought that had been done 2 years ago, so I apologize to the Gentrys about that. I really thought that was done. I just want to say this about development there. Of course, I'd like to see it all stay farmland. Everybody would, really. Except the people who own the land. And one day, you know, even the Gentrys might, when their grandchildren come along, maybe they want to develop it. You know, who knows? But right now, this group has decisions to make. And I would say that it would behoove us to look at the developers. This is not someone who's coming from California to fill up the land. It's somebody that lives here. These people live here. The residents are here, the developers are here, and they all live here. So they know how we feel about preservation. They know how we feel about the rural areas. Every one of them do. And I'm much more comfortable sitting here with them and talking to them about what we want to see and what the residents want to see, and let them use their creativity to get that, and they will. I'm convinced they will. They've got a good track record, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to support this because what I have seen of this particular plot, that doesn't mean it's set in stone that that's what they're going to build, but from what I've seen, they are doing their best to preserve the view shed and the protection of these farms around it. So I will support the study for the annexation. I'm not saying I'm gonna, depends on what they come up with, you know, but if that road doesn't get moved, I'll tell you right now, I'm not gonna support it. But that's the way I feel about it.
Alderman Bransford.
You're right. Everything that's been said is very important and correct, and I will reserve my final, of course, decision until we see what the plan of service will look like. I'm very interested in keeping that really that area view shed, maintain a certain character, rural character out there. It's so important for us to do this right, because I think you screw it up one time and it would be something that no one would be pleased about. So I'm going to reserve until we get more information, and hopefully, as been articulated already, is that we can have some creative design that can really make us think twice about putting something out there. But as of now, I will just wait and see what we can come up with. Otherwise, leave it alone.
Alderman Berger? Oh, I'm sorry, I'll take Alderman
Go ahead.
Peterson.
Sure.
Whenever I looked back at where, I guess the major thoroughfare plan had shown a road, if I remember correctly, it showed going all the way to Cotton Road. I think that just making it change right in this area would not be good enough. I'm saying we need to look at that entire piece in the major thoroughfare plan.
Yeah.
As I say,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, and I did not really go back and look at it again today, but I think that it showed that it was going all the way, it showed it going all the way up to Cotton Road. I mean, I can't believe that, I think it was number 90 or something like that in that major thoroughfare plan, but still, that really goes in all sorts of rural area, not just right here cutting through the Gentry farm. So I'd like to have a good deal of information about that. But also, I have to say,
Go ahead.
this, if we're talking about, 150-something dwelling units on 58 acres, it's not gonna be rural.
Right. So it has to.
Alderman Berger, I'll
Yeah,
recognize you.
just real quick, that road, when they put it in, will go to the edge of their property, won't extend on, but I do agree with you, Alderman Peterson, we need to look at that thoroughfare plan all the way through and see how that aligns. But I know once that goes through, it'll stop at the end of that property, for that development. But, you know, just talking to the plan, about the plan of services, when we do that, we talk about stormwater, we talk about all these different things in a plan of services, and I think we need to evaluate this, because of this area being the way it is, and we're trying to keep it in a rural setting, but not like put something that would be in the middle of Cool Springs over here. So I would just mention that I think curb and gutter, you know, we have the rolling curbs that are not, the curb and gutter looks like it belongs in the city. The rolling curbs belong more out in a rural area. I think we need, as we do plan of services, we need to look at that, how that affects stormwater, how that looks at that. Because I would suggest something like that for this development. But the only reason I bring it up, because I know in plan of services, they would need to consider that.
Okay, you ready to vote? Show of hands, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So it passes 7-1. Item 5, this is a public hearing, consideration of resolution 2020-02, a resolution approving a revised development plan for McKay's Mill PUD subdivision for the property located north and south of Liberty Pike and east of Turning Wheel Lane.
This is the McKay's Mill alteration. This resolution does not change any of the entitlements to the planned unit development. Essentially, what they're doing is asking to be considered under the new ordinance, which under the new ordinance, PD does allow indoor animal use. And so they would be asking for you to allow them to have indoor animal use at what used to be the Walgreens out there. I think we've discussed this in work session several times. Everyone should be familiar with it, but if you have questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, I have no speakers cards, so we'll call the public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion. Seconded by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 6, this is a public hearing, consideration ordinance 2019-59, an ordinance to rezone 20 acres from Plan District to Plan District 12.7 for the property located north of Del Rio Pike and east of Brink Place, located at 801 Del Rio Pike, known as the Madison PUD.
Good evening. The multifamily development currently consists of 182 multifamily units, and the applicant is proposing to add 3 buildings with an additional 64 units, increasing the overall number of multifamily units to 254. Envision Franklin places this parcel in the multifamily design concept, which supports the request.
Okay, I have a speaker card. It's not clear, Mr. Burnick, which item you wanted to speak to, whether it was the rezoning or whether it was the development plan. But you can speak to either one you want to right now.
Both, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Scotty Burnick, a landscape architect with Reagan Smith. I'm here on behalf of John Barry with the Covenant Capital Group. As you know, this is a 20-acre development near downtown Franklin. It's currently zoned PD, so although we're not changing the use of the zoning, we are requesting to add some additional units. This is consistent with the major objectives of Envision Franklin and also follows the existing multifamily design concept or land use policy. That policy supports a range of housing types and also a range of price points. This specific development provides additional housing at workforce housing price points. The plan meets all of the PD bulk regulations, and I'm available for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Have no one else to speak. I don't see anybody else coming forward. I declare the public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Martin. Any discussion?
I believe what I want to talk about is more appropriate on the development plan, but I'm just looking here, I don't see, they show the the entrance on Brink Place on this particular part. Is that right? Thank you.
Any other comments? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
No, I can't support it.
I'm sorry. We passes 7-1. Item number 7. This is a public hearing, consideration of resolution 2019-134, resolution to approve a development plan for the Madison PUD subdivision with two modification standards, both for a reduction of the Class C buffer for the property located north of Del Rio Pike and east of Brink Place on 20 acres located at AO1 Del Rio Pike. Joey?
Thank you. The plan calls for one multifamily building to be removed and three multifamily buildings to be constructed, which would up the multifamily unit count by 64 units to a total of 254. The building placement and overall plan meets the recommendation of Envision Franklin. The applicant is requesting to install an emergency access gate with a connection to Brink Place, which goes against section 5.10.42 of the zoning ordinance, which requires full connectivity to external roads outside of the development. As a current condition, the applicant is to remove the proposed emergency access gate for full connectivity to Brink Place, and I'll speak more to that later. But for the modification of standards, the applicant is requesting to reduce the required Class C buffer width to 50 feet as required in the zoning ordinance to accommodate for the existing parking lot and utilize the existing vegetation within the buffer rather than plant new vegetation. The new construction is located internal to the site, and new vegetation would disturb the greenery that has already established itself as a natural buffer between this development and neighboring single-family lots. So due to the existing conditions and location of the parking area, staff recommends approval of the reduction of Class C buffer and to use existing vegetation and not remove the trees and shrubs that have already grown in there. For the second modification, it's very similar, to reduce the Class C buffer along the eastern property line by 12.5 feet due to the existing conditions that were constructed with the original Meadowview apartment complex prior to the previous zoning ordinance being adopted in 2008. So due to the existing conditions and placement of the original buildings, staff recommends approval of the reduction of the Class C buffer. Both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of the overall development plan. Planning Commission also recommended to remove condition 31 that would require Brink Place to have full connectivity and to have the plan as proposed with only emergency access. And that was voted on by, or recommended by a vote of 5-3. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Burnick?
Good afternoon, Scotty Burnick. As you know, Joey mentioned, we're proposing to add 64 additional units here. There's currently ingress and egress off of Del Rio Pike with Brink Place right away at the northwest corner of the site. Recommendations from a third-party traffic impact study review noted that an emergency access at Brink Place would be valuable. Early in the project, as we kicked off and looked and had meetings with the neighbors at a neighborhood meeting and before, we presented it that way and had committed, our client committed to the neighbors that we would stand up here tonight and ask for an emergency gate. So I wanted to give you a little bit of history on that. That accomplishes protection of the existing traffic flow that's out there today, but more importantly, it still provides an emergency access for connectivity. This is an extremely sensitive layout with buildings located internally to the site with both vegetation and existing buildings buffering the new facilities. We'll have at least about 50% open space even with the new infill of the site. The approved traffic study shows a minimal increase of trips. Traffic operates at an acceptable level of service, and site distance exceeds the AASHTO standards. Also wanted to note, in terms of landscape, we're proposing to maintain all of the existing mature vegetation along the perimeter. Along the eastern property line, we are supplementing to meet the C buffer on that side of the property. In closing, as modification standards, just sort of hit those, but in closing, it's a great project, provides opportunities for workforce housing price points, meets the standards of Envision Franklin in terms of infill, and available for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other speaker cards, so we'll declare the public hearing closed. Here's what we're gonna do on this one. I'll need a motion and a second to get it into first phase. Then we'll have to vote on two different modifications of standard. And I'll just say modification standard 1 for Class C buffer, and then number 2, Class C buffer again. And then we'll approve the entire motion if you approve everything. So if everybody's clear on that, I would have one question to Joey. Does this motion include emergency exit only?
The current, yes, the current project as, with staff's recommendation, or with conditions proposed by staff, it does include that the full connectivity would be required. So if that were to be changed, then that would have to be done by a motion from the board.
So to clarify, the board would have to make an amendment to.
An amendment to have the project remain as proposed with just the emergency access gates.
Would that be in the original motion?
It might be, sure.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion now. Alderman Martin.
All right, I move that the plan be accepted with the emergency exit put in instead of the permanent exit.
Second.
Appropriate motion and second. Now, I need a motion to approve modification standard number 1 on the Class C buffer.
Mayor, I'll just knock, they're the same. I'll move that we approve both modification of standard 1 and 2 because they are the same, essentially.
I will second that, the same.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
I have a question on the buffer. So one part of that buffer, Joey, is that's going to have the, am I understanding this correctly? Will have the vegetation, the buffer removed and replaced on that one side. Is that correct or not? No.
No,
So
all
for the,
internal.
no vegetation is being removed.
Okay,
So it's just maintaining the existing vegetation and not
landscaping.
requiring the new landscape vegetation with the zoning ordinance.
But they're adding in landscaping.
Yes, they're adding on the, is it both sides? Eastern side. So the
Okay.
western side, they're
I wa-
leaving alone, the eastern side,
Okay,
they're
I want to
adding
make sure
additional.
that was added in there. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Thank you. Just wanted that
Okay,
clarified.
any other discussion on the motion on the modification of standards? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll now go back to the original motion with the development standards. Vice Mayor?
How do we make sure that the emergency access is emergency-only access unless and until this body votes to change that? I want that, I mean, if we're gonna do this, and
In the
if we're going to do this, I understand it's in the motion, but I don't want that to be subject to staff revision.
No.
Well, we have those in other areas, and it's how we operate. It's what you've directed. So I don't know what else to tell you. We have other incidences or other situations like that, and we maintain an emergency access point, and that's,
Is it recorded as part of a deed, or is it a covenant?
I'm not sure exactly the
Well, this has it on. It has it on
mechanism
the
we do
picture.
it. I mean, that, it just is done a number of places.
Okay, I just want to insulate it from
Yeah.
change without at least this body deliberating that change. This would be, removing that emergency access and making it full access would be disastrous for a neighborhood that is already overwhelmed by cut-through traffic as it is. And dumping another 200 or whatever units, giving another 200 and something units access through Rebel Meadows would be insane.
I mean, it's the road network you've directed us to implement, so.
It's part of the plan, and the only way to change that plan, there are certain triggers, which one of them would be changing the road access and network. So, we respect those plans, and the developer and neighborhood is obligated to do it too. So the zoning ordinance is very clear on what triggers a change to the plan.
Okay.
And in this instance, such as density and such as the road network and access. And if it's identified and approved as such as an emergency-only access, it'll remain as such.
And it would have to come back to you for a change.
All right, so it wouldn't be planning commission.
It's not something that happened on a staff level, it would have to come back through you. It is a
Board of
Substantive change to the development plan.
And the development plan is only approved by the Board of Mayor and Alderman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I could.
Sure.
There are different levels of changes, but this one is a significant one that would come back to the Board of Mayor and Alderman.
Okay. Everybody clear? Alderman Barnhill?
And I don't disagree with what Alderman McClendon has said over this right here. At some point in time, maybe not tonight, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next year, we're going to have to look at connectivity. Now,
Thank you.
I realize that in whoever's ward it's in, it's dumping. But you're putting 60-something more units into that area back there. And I dare say, it's a significant drive-through, cut around, come back, and maneuver your way in and out of there. And I'm not saying this is necessarily the place to have the connectivity, it may not be. And I can support not having that and having emergency exit because, emergency access, because we've done it elsewhere. With Riser Point, for instance, is one of them that I know of. And we saw that on the tour. So it's not something new, and it's not something that the board once puts in. I don't think I'm interested in taking it out if I'm sitting up here voting for it. But I would say this, we're putting 60-something more units back into that area back there on the same acreage and on the same roads, streets, whatever it is, it carries them in and out. And I just know that staff recommended, if I'm not too far wrong, fire department recommended that not be that be an access road there and not necessarily a closed emergency road. And sooner or later, somewhere, sometime, we're gonna have to take a look at that, and it'll be a decision, and we'll have to go forward with it. But we don't help ourselves by putting 60 more units in and still having the same number of accesses in and out on Old Del Rio Pike. So that's my comment on that particular. I'm gonna vote for it, whether that's closed or open, either way.
Alderman Berger?
I would just like to ditto what Alderman Barnhill said. We really do have to start looking at our connectivity because we have a policy, and I've made it a point to try to follow that policy for connectivity because I know how important it is to try to get our traffic around and people different access points. Access points are extremely important. But I've gone back over there again. I did before, went back over there again and everything. And I'll support this tonight with the emergency access because I don't think is as critical in this point
Probably
right
not.
here, now at this point. Maybe in the future it would be, maybe 10 years, 15 years from now it needs to be, or who knows what happens in the time down the road. But we have to start looking at this connectivity because this is, we don't do ourselves any favor by having a policy that we don't follow. And once in a blue moon, there is something that just doesn't fit quite like the glove for the connectivity. And on this one, I will support it for that.
Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 8, consideration of City of Franklin Contract 2019-0370, Parkland Impact Fee, payment of fee only, agreement for the Madison between the City of Franklin and Franklin Meadowview Apartments LLC for the amount of $275,456. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Seconded by Alderman Bransford. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 9, City of Franklin Contract number 2019-0376, a professional services agreement with Barge Design Solutions, Inc. for the design of the Bicentennial Park project. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion, second by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion?
Let me just mention, we did add additional design work so that we will design both a parking lot, typical parking lot, and the reinforced turf area that could serve for just event parking. So you'll have both those options when we look
Good,
at
good. Thank
bidding
you.
the project.
Good, thank you, good.
Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 10, consideration City of Franklin Contract 2020-0012, a professional services agreement with Hazen and Sawyer for the evaluation of Franklin's southeastern wastewater capacity. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Second by Alderman Speedy. Any discussion? Alderman Barnhill.
I assume that all of us have looked at the $3 million price tag on this. And I'm just looking to see on page 1 of 2 and 2 of 2, what I'm getting for $3 million. I guess I'm getting $3 million worth of something. But you know, that is one heck of a lot of money. The way I look at it, when we already sort of have an idea of what we're looking at there, I mean, maybe I'm missing the point someplace along the way, but $2,822,300 to study the water management, the wastewater capacity for that area is a great deal of money. And maybe I must have missed this. Did this come up in a workshop someplace? I mean,
Yes, it's been on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yes, it has
And I've
been.
looked at this, through this.
Yeah, and it was on the work session before this. We actually have had it on twice. We talked about the broader planning, and then
We talked about it.
and then we brought the specific contract to you 2 weeks ago. So this is the third time we've had it before you. It is consistent with your integrated water resource plan. It talks about how you would do the south water reclamation facility. It talks about capacity, but it also talks about the specifics around piloting a design and operations approach for a plant at that location, at the property you own in the southeast right along I-65. So this does significant work to lay the groundwork, work with the regulators to look at that south plant, which is a project you're gonna need to make some decisions on, and we'll probably need to have to bring online in the next 10-year period. So when you do a plant of this nature, there's a long lead time, a lot of regulatory interaction, a lot of testing, a lot of data gathering, a lot of looking at the whole region and how it would function. We have added on some additional refresh of the capacity that you'll need in this area because land use patterns have changed a little bit from what we saw in the integrated water resource plan. State law around annexation and how that works has also modified. So all of those elements we want to bring into consideration so that, you know, as you look at a plant in this area, you're providing both the right capacity and the right technology and the right compliance plan with the regulatory framework.
Alderman Peterson?
And the other thing we need to say is, you know, the discharge here would go right on down to our water treatment plant.
And discharge will be one of the things you look at.
Exactly.
What your alternatives are in terms of how you put it in your reclaim system, how else it might work. Also interface with the river. Obviously, that's been something that's been critical in all of our planning. We model that, we care for that extensively. And so that is all of what will be refined through this planning effort.
And I might
See if
point
Mark or
out
Michelle
that
have
what
something
we're
they wanna
putting
add.
back into the river is much, much, much cleaner than the river. So, Alderman Berger?
Is there anything in this, I'm with Clyde, this is very, very expensive.
Yes,
And
it
I
is.
know this stuff doesn't come cheaply to study a capacity for the southeast wastewater. But is there anything at all we could do internally to lessen this, that we ourselves could do internally to help with this contract, to lessen the
I know
price tag?
staff has worked with the consultant pretty deeply to reduce the costs here. So this is purely just looking at capacity. The reference to capacity is for wastewater treatment capacity, but as Eric had mentioned, and I think he went through it pretty well, is that there are a lot of details that they need to dig into. What is the discharge? Are we discharging to the river? Are there alternative methods in which we're going to treat and dispose of the water? Eric had mentioned that there's a regulatory coordination effort which is going to be significant, simply because there is a potential to discharge upstream. What are the treatment requirements going to be? And of course, there's a piloting effort to evaluate the different treatment technologies that we're going to be looking at. So all of that takes a lot of effort, a lot of technical capacity. I believe it's a 2-year project. Is that correct? So it's over a 2-year period. And I don't know if Michelle has anything else to add.
So when we went through the scope, we actually looked at a lot of ways where our staff could help with this, with the project and kind of doing some of the things. So in the proposal, we talk about how we're going to take on a lot of the laboratory services during the pilot testing to reduce some of the cost. We have some of the operators from our existing plant that are, if that's the method, if that's the route that we chose to go, that are going to learn this new technology so we can kind of ease that transition and then reduce some of the costs that the consultant would be providing for operating that pilot plant. So we did try and assert as much as we can in there.
So what you're saying is, you've already done this, and if you hadn't done that, it would have been a higher price tag?
Yes. Yeah, we reduced a significant amount of what the initial cost was.
Yeah.
And this title
Yep.
may simplify it too much, because
Yeah, I
this
think
is
so.
really,
It's more
while this
involved.
isn't design of the plant, it gives you the framework upon which you would do the design of your plant. Both from what the guidance you get from regulators, how it would work in that specific area with the different physical constraints and things you need to look at. So it is a pretty sophisticated review, and it sets the framework for how we would decide what would be built and how that plant would function.
Well, you also mentioned alternative discharges. I think Mark, you mentioned that. So will they be bringing us different alternatives possibly?
Yeah.
Rather than just dumping it in the river or whatever, or putting it back? As the mayor said, what we put back in the river is much cleaner than the river.
Correct.
But will there be other alternatives that they're going to actually study? And they
Correct.
will give us some options possibly?
Yes. So part of the largest part is what is what we're going to do with the effluent from that plant and how we're going to use that. And
Right.
then once we determine that part is when we then figure out what sort of treatment we need to get to that level.
And will that also be looking at what we could do with effluent to put it out there for the public's use?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I think we missed the boat on that a lot of times because of, because it is what it is. It's hard to redo that, so we do that in different sections when we have green fields and stuff. So I think that's very important. Okay, thank you.
One more just.
I've got Alderman Martin, if
Okay,
you
go
don't
ahead.
mind, let her
I'll
speak,
find-
and then I'll
yeah.
come back to you.
I just want to say that I really think this is a good idea, that we are being proactive about this rather than reactive. I know it's a lot of money, but look at the last few weeks what we've done. We've had a meeting about the new annexation down there, and there's going to be development down there, and we don't want to be left out in the cold. And I would like for us to at least get this on the books and something started about it now, rather than wait until we are, everybody says, don't allow development until you have the resources to take care of it, until you have the infrastructure. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing the best we can do. So I'm comfortable about looking at this.
Back to you, Alderman Barnhill.
If you start the $2.8 million tonight, whereabouts are you in having the first gallon of water treated in that new treatment plant?
10 years? 10?
That is a great question. So Mark was saying this project is about a 2-year length.
But this is 2 years.
This is just
So
for
we
the
could-
evaluation. So this is just for the
So this
regulatory
is-
coordination with
So
TDEC.
this is 2 years of the first 10 years,
Or 12,
probably.
15.
probably.
And this helps facilitate decisions you'll need to make around that 10-year
Yeah.
project timeline. This gives you the information you'll need to make about
Yeah.
the plant and the capacity and all those elements. So this feeds into a lot of decision-making that will be coming in that 10-year horizon.
The idea is identify what levels we need to treat to, identify the technology in which we can get there and the means of disposal. And at that point, you can lay out the appropriate design. Right now, if we enter into a design phase, which, you know, arguably would shorten the whole contract time or the building time, we would be designing in the dark. So this is, the regulatory compliance component is gonna be huge in this. And establishing what our requirements are gonna be.
Okay, you ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. I need a motion to go into executive
So
session.
moved. Second.
Seconded by Alderman Barnhill. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Depends on which day you catch me. If y'all don't tell anybody, I won't. Wow, that might be a first for me.
saw them on the street.
Hey, Frank Hill? Yes, ma'am. What do you think of that? Well,
Okay, we're back from executive session. I'll note that Alderman Bransford had to leave because of sickness, and so we're sorry for that.
Mayor, I have a motion.
Go ahead.
May I see the caption, Mr. Squires? I move that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen reject the mediated agreement in Hoyt versus City of Franklin, Circuit Court of Williamson County, docket number 2017-134.
Second.
Corporate motion second. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor say aye. We're adjourned.